Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so thankful to be here today. My speech, like you just said, is turning pain into power. I brought some slides, so if we can turn to them right now, I would appreciate it. So, first, hello again. I'm Isabelle. Like you just said, I'm a multilingual, multinational noogler, actually, as we like to say, because I just started recently. And I'm all about social justice, equality, empowerment, especially of marginalized people. And I know that here at Google, we like googly facts. So, one of my fun facts is that I love kids and children so much so that the next slide is completely dedicated to them. This is just me with some kids and babies. I think when we think about empowerment, it's really important to focus on the little ones as well. It's all about empowering and nurturing them and just giving them everything they need in order to flourish into the people they're supposed to be, and especially the kids that are also marginalized and suffering because of where they're from or because of the way they look. So if we turn to the next slide, please. Like I said today, my speech is Black History, Turning Pain into Power, because that's really what I think about when I think about Black history, when I think about Black people. I think about resilience. I think about the fact that we're still standing after everything that we've been through historically and unfortunately, even presently. And if we could just turn to the next slide, please. Over the course of time, Black people have suffered in ways that are unimaginable. We have been stripped of our culture, our identity, while being murdered and enslaved. And even today, I think it's easy for a lot of people to think, oh, there is a Black family in the White House, or there's Black people on billboards. But the reality is that even today, just the color of your skin, especially the darker it is, that can still come with a whole set of negative issues. And it can even be a death sentence, as we all saw, with George Floyd, but that's unfortunately not just one case. So I think it's important that we sensibilize ourselves to that even though it may seem like it's better, Black people are still suffering. And when you talk to most of us, they will tell you, a lot of Black people will tell you about the struggles that they face, from not finding, makeup in their skin tone at a drugstore, to being called the N-word in public without anybody standing up for them, or actually feeling embarrassed and ashamed of the beautiful melanin in their skin in a world that constantly almost only celebrates whiteness. I think it really does something to your mind, heart, and soul to live in a world where it's pretty obvious that the world's not really catering to you, where you're not really thought about, where the whole system is really there to first and foremost cater to people that are not like you. We have whole generations of brown people growing up here who never saw anybody looking like them or like their parents on television or as teachers or as bus drivers. And once again, I think that does something to you. I sometimes wonder how well Black people, marginalized people, would be doing if they didn't have to carry all of this. If we didn't have to go to work as if there wasn't yet another racist story unfolding on television or actually in our real lives. We have to still go to work and thrive and function as if all of this didn't happen. But it does happen. And actually, we're expected to work even harder. I remember at university, professors saying, y'all have to be at least twice as good to get half as much. These are just some slides that I'm going to explain right now. Black people, Black culture drives so much. And I think it's about time we get the credit that we deserve. And I love this billboard that says, this world does not move without Black creativity. I know that, this world is so much more beautiful because of all this melanin. The other slide is Katy Perry. Apologies if you're a fan of hers, but her appropriating, our culture, our hair, without giving credit where credit is due, is also something that we often see, but I can't really get deep into this topic right now, maybe for another Toastmaster. And then we have the African continent, the richest continent in the world, being exploited. Even today, we're all doing so well in the West because people somewhere else are struggling, and we're still exploiting them today. But once again, that's maybe for another Toastmaster. And then you may be wondering about the empty room over there. Well, I actually think that a lot of museums in Europe would look like this if we would return the stolen artifacts to Africa. So that's why I put this empty building there. So really, this world wouldn't exist if we didn't help create it. And that is important to know. It's important that we continuously empower each other. And if we celebrate Black culture, it's important that we also celebrate Black people. Okay, if we move on to the next slide, please. Despite all of this, I have honestly never seen brighter smiles than those on the faces of the most marginalized. The fact that Black people are still smiling and dancing and celebrating. If you've ever been to like an African funeral, you know what I'm talking about, because even then, we will cherish that person's life. We are still the reason so many are, we're entertainers, we're bringing so much joy into this world. And that really makes me think that this is something God-given, that even hundreds of years of colonization can take away from us. And it's time, once again, that we empower each other and that we actually give Black people the credit that we deserve. And also the fact that we say Black lives matter, we want equality, we don't even want revenge. That makes me realize that love is so real. And ironically, love a lot of times seems to be the realest among those who've experienced the most pain and the most hate. So Black joy is something very near and dear to my heart, and I will always be here to celebrate it and to make sure that it continuously becomes even stronger than our pain. And I dream of the day that Black people have the same privileges that their white counterparts. I dream of the day that the color of your skin is not going to determine how you're treated or how your life is going to be lived. I dream that we have the same privilege of individuality, where we can walk into a room and stereotypes are not introducing us before we even open our mouth. I dream of the day that when one Black person does something, it doesn't mean that all of us are like that. I dream that we live in a world that also thinks about us structurally in all areas of society, because once again, when we think about the whole system, it wasn't made for us. It really wasn't, whether it's the justice system, the medical system, and once again, that's for another Toastmaster, but maybe an example that's a little bit more techie, because after all, we're a tech company. For example, another example of something that isn't optimized for Black people or even for mixed people. So my Face ID, which is obviously here to unlock my phone and access valuable information, so I use it to open my phone and access information that maybe another person shouldn't access. It actually works on my sister. And you only have like 5 tries to open it. And I've heard from other Black people where like their Face ID works on like the dad and the son. Like that's not even the same generation. Come on now. Like I'm just like, what did these engineers do? Did they just put like a black square and it's supposed to like work for everybody? And you know, that's just one small example of how this, I mean, those are my sisters. Obviously, yeah, they're my sisters, but we're not even twins. And I just remember my sister being like this. She wasn't even trying. And you only have 5 tries. Like at the first try, sometimes she would be smiling and she could just unlock my phone. Like, come on. And that just shows you that like in all levels of society, wherever you look, it's not optimized for us. Like it really isn't. And once again, that's something that we should sensibilize ourselves to and make sure that we empower people so they can be enjoying the same privileges as their white counterparts. If we move to the next slide. Speaking of faces and speaking of identities, I think it is so important that we celebrate all faces and all identities. And I am very, very thankful to be here. I'm very, very thankful to be in this space. Google is an amazing company, and I'm not just saying that because we're here at Google. I think there's still a lot of work that we can do, but the fact that we're actually challenging, you know, our biases, that we're trying to make this world a more just place, the fact that so many people more empowered, more educated, more confident because of what they can do through Google. I mean, even the Google logo changing for like Martin Luther King Day or Black History Month has really given me so much joy. And even the fact that we have the space right now where I can talk about that speaks volumes to me. And also being in a room with 2 of the people, you know, who interviewed me and hired me, and I still have the honor of working with them, shows me that for them, you know, my looks or my heritage was not a reason to not put me into the place where I am today. And I'm so, so thankful to be here, honestly. So continuously, it is important that we uplift each other, that we sensibilize ourselves to the struggles that our brothers and sisters are going through simply because of the way they look. And I'm so thankful to each and every one of you who is here today. And thank you for listening. And one last thing, speaking of things we can do, I, for example, have a YouTube channel. I know this kind of sounds like buy my mixtape, but I just want you to go to my YouTube channel where I also talk about things like, you know, empowerment and social justice. And I also travel to different African countries before Corona, and just with myself and my camera to show another side of Africa, a side that we so often don't see on television. So if you would subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. And if you would do your work to uplift yourself and your Black brothers and sisters, not just in honor of Black History Month, but all the time, I would be forever grateful. Thank you so, so much, and happy Black History Month again.